question.
Madam President, I rise today to discuss Social Security and its future. This is certainly an issue that affects all Americans, and Madam President, now is the time that we can address it in a way that will not be horribly obtrusive to the people who will be on Social Security in 25 years when it just hits the bottom and we have stark realities that are going to hurt people. We can avoid that. Last Thursday, I introduced with Senator John Kyle as an original co-sponsor Senate Bill 1213, the Defend and Save Social Security Act, a bill that will secure Social Security for the next 75 years without raising taxes and without cutting core benefits to anyone. 28 years ago, this past April, Congress and President Reagan came together in a bipartisan manner and acted decisively to address Social Security's finances to save the program for retirees. The men and women of that Congress working with President Reagan did it because at that time, the program's expenditures had begun exceeding revenues in 1975. By mid-1982, the Social Security trustees warned, this is a quote, "Social Security will be unable to make benefit payments on time beginning in the latter half of 1982. So the President and the Congress, in a bipartisan effort, started on a glide path of raising the retirement age to meet the current actuarial tables. Today, we are in roughly the same place. This spring, the trustees estimated that the Social Security Trust Fund reserves will be depleted in 2036, which is 25 years away. We have a little more time than President Reagan and Congress had back in 1975. At that point in time, the trustees today say they estimate that payroll tax revenue to the Social Security Trust Fund will only be able to pay out 77% of benefits to beneficiaries. In today's dollars, that would mean a cut in benefits of 23%, or $271 a month average in core benefit cuts if we don't do anything. Last year, just to give you the numbers, 157 million American workers paid Social Security payroll taxes, totaling about $637 billion in revenues. However, a total of $702 billion in benefits were paid out to the approximately 54 million beneficiaries. These numbers are clear, Madam President. The amount of Social Security benefits being paid out now exceeds the revenue that Social Security is collecting. The trustees, when they gave their report a month or so ago, said that to increase the assets, you could increase taxes right now. The payroll tax on employees and employers could go from 12.4% to 14.5% right now during this jobless economic situation. Madam President, I wouldn't vote to raise taxes on our Social Security payers now or our employers. It would be unthinkable. The other thing suggested by the trustees that would meet this shortfall is that you could have a cut in benefits right now. An immediate cut of $150 a month from core benefits would do it. Well, what kind of option is that? It is no option. We are not going to do that. Everyone knows we're not going to do that. We're not going to raise payroll taxes, and we're not going to cut benefits now. We have more time today than the race against the clock that occurred in 1975. We have the option for 25 years of doing something that would have a gradual reform to shore up Social Security and give future retirees sufficient time to prepare for the modest changes in raising the retirement age. If we wait, we've got a 23% cut in benefits. So it's imperative for Social Security's financial future that we join together again in a bipartisan effort, stabilize Social Security, and ensure that full benefits are paid out for the next 75 years. We can do it if we don't delay. In 1935, when Social Security was established, there were 40 workers supporting each retiree. 20 years later, in 1955, the ratio was 9 workers supporting 1 retiree. Today, there are 3 workers supporting 1 retiree. In tandem with these rapidly changing and troubling demographics is the fact that we also must start taking the necessary steps to pay down, not add to, our national debt. We know that the Vice President Biden, along with members of the House and Senate, are negotiating. As we speak, the staffs are working and the members have been meeting. They're negotiating to try to do some kind of spending cuts before the debt ceiling is reached. The $14 trillion debt ceiling will be reached around the 1st of August of this year. So now the Vice President and the group from the House and Senate are meeting to try to cut spending because we're not going to raise the debt ceiling unless there is real reform. A number of us on both sides of the aisle have agreed we've got to have spending reform so we don't have to raise the debt ceiling again beyond $14 trillion. So now is the time that we can address the issue of the debt and do it in a responsible way. Because if we just use discretionary spending for the reforms needed, we'll never get there. We will never have enough cuts in discretionary spending. Why is that? It's because discretionary spending is less than 50% of the spending of our government. It is the mandatory spending that is the vast majority of the spending. Discretionary spending is in the 40% range. 60% is mandatory. So we can't get there for responsible budgetary cuts without looking at the entitlements. So now, what kind of entitlements do we have to work with? Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Now, I think we can do a lot to reform Medicare, but it is complicated and it will take time. It will take time to work out all the pieces because so many people are dependent on Medicare. It is the people who use Medicare and it is the providers who provide it, as well as the insurance companies that augment and supplement. So there are a lot of moving parts in Medicare which we need to address. But what can we do between now and August 8th that would make a real difference, that would put us on a more responsible path and begin to make the reforms that would allow a responsible lifting of the debt ceiling, knowing that we're going to cut those deficits so that we won't have to do this again, hopefully ever. That's where Social Security comes in. My Defend and Save Social Security Act, which Senator Jon Kyl and I are sponsoring, will do the following. It will raise the age gradually. Under my bill, with Senator Kyl, anyone who is currently 58 years old or older will not be affected at all. For everyone else, the normal retirement age and the early retirement age would increase by 3 months each year, starting in 2016. The normal retirement age would reach 67 by 2019. Now, keep in mind that we're already on the glide path to go to 67. That's what President Reagan and the previous Congress did. And that was done with the Greenspan Commission input later. So with that trajectory, we will go to the 67 age. So my bill takes us to 67 in 2019. We would already be going in that direction anyway. It then goes by 2023 to age 68, and by 2027 to 69. The early retirement age would gradually increase to 63 by 2019, and by 2023, 64. So you have 3 months per year added to the retirement age. So it is a very gradual increase to 69 or 64. The second part is the COLA. We do not cut core benefits at all. But the cost of living increase is meant to hedge against rising inflation. And when inflation gets above 1%, then you really need, in my opinion, to start helping people with COLAs. Under my plan, we would start COLAs after inflation is over 1%. The average COLA has been 2.2%. The rate of inflation has been about 2.2% over the last 10 years. So the average COLA would, under my bill, start after 1%. So if it's 2%, you would get a 1% COLA. I believe that 1% reduction in the COLA, not core benefits, would be preferable to the drastic cuts in core benefits that will evolve if we don't do something now. In today's dollars, the 1% would cost, of the increase that you would get in a COLA, about $11. So you wouldn't get $11 of increase, but you would get your core COLA, and then after 1%, you would get the regular COLA that would be expected. So my bill will generate cash flow for Social Security, maintain a positive balance for the trust fund over the next 75 years. Social Security's deficits would be eliminated under my bill. Now, we had the Social Security Administration look at our proposal and give us all of our numbers. According to the chief actuary, my proposal would achieve, in the next 10 years, $416 billion in deficit reduction. Now, what that means is, in perspective for what we're dealing with in the budget talks for the debt ceiling lift, we're talking about a 10-year window. So within that 10-year budget window, we could take out $416 billion in deficit reduction, along with the spending cuts in discretionary spending that would be part of any kind of reform. So we can add a responsible cut in the mandatory spending over the 10-year period with these very gradual and small adjustments, and help in our deficit reduction, which we have to do if we're going to achieve the reductions that must be done. Every year that we wait, we're going to have to shave more off the COLAs or the age. Now, there are some proposals out there that take the age to 70. And maybe over the next 25 years, that will be part of our actuarial table, because today people, the average lifespan is 77. So people are wanting to work longer. They are healthier longer. A lot of people are trying to keep working longer, and I think more and more of the companies and employers want that experience. They want the experienced people to stay longer. So it just is part of our actuarial adjustment that we should be making. Now, over the next 25 years, where we would be then going into the long-term adjustments that are necessary. If we look, say, out until 2085, we will take $7.2 trillion off the Social Security requirements. So now you're talking about fiscal responsibility, looking at both sides of our spending equation, mandatory as well as discretionary, which gives us a real chance to make a difference and to say this Congress, hopefully working with this president, because it's got to be bipartisan. We can't pass a bill that the president won't sign. And the Democrats are in the majority in the Senate, Republicans are in the majority in the House, so this is going to take some compromising. The Republicans don't control the Senate, and Democrats don't control the House, and they don't control the White House. So it's not like we're able to say, my way or the highway. Can't do it. And neither can the president. So we've got to come together if we are going to make the very tough choices that will get our fiscal house in order for future retirees to have the cushion that Social Security would be. It's supposed to be a safety net. Madam President, it's to talk another day, but we need a better retirement option for our retirees as well, so they can save more in IRAs, because Social Security is not supposed to be a pension plan. It's a safety net. It's a supplement. So if we can solve this, the next thing we ought to be doing is adding more options for people to save. And we have done some of that with the bill that I sponsored with Barbara Mikulski, the Democrat from Maryland, with spousal IRAs. We have increased the amount that you can save and that a stay-at-home spouse can save, and we've made some major good moves in the right direction, but that is different from what we're talking about today, which is Social Security. Now, I have written a letter to the Vice President. I have asked him to put Social Security on the agenda, because when we finish all these discussions, they're going to come back with cuts in discretionary spending, but it can't be enough when it's less than 40% of our spending. We've got to look at entitlements if we're going to be responsible. Now, Madam President, since I filed my bill this week and have had the opportunity with the Heritage Foundation and the media to talk about my plan, we're getting some good support. Of course, we're getting the people who say no cuts, no way, no how. We expect that. But it just is burying your head in the sand if you say no way, no how. So we're getting some support. The founder of the Association of Mature American Citizens, Dan Weber, who on their website says they now have 160,000 members, the fastest growing organization for older Americans in our country, has stated his support for my proposal. They see that changes have to be made. They've even gone a step further and talked about private accounts, which I certainly support, but it's not in my plan. So I appreciate the Association of Mature Americans being willing to do what's right for their constituents, their retirees, but also for the long term. To say, we know that if we're going to have a responsible approach, entitlements must be on the table, and Social Security is one that we can do if it's bipartisan together. My plan will address the issue now with no tax increases and no cuts in core benefits. It will have the gradual raise in the retirement age affecting no one before the year 2016, and after that, 3 months a year. Just 3 months a year in added age to be eligible for Social Security. And the cost of living adjustment would be adjusted 1% down, and after 1% inflation, then you would have the cost of living adjustment as well, but no cuts in core benefits. So the amendments of the past in 1983, the amendments that have put us back on track with actuarial tables in the past can be done again. Madam President, it is my great hope that we can step up to the plate like those who came before us did, do the right thing for the long term, and burst the bubble that we can reform spending only addressing the discretionary side. It is a myth. Anyone who tells you with a straight face, I'm not going to look at the entitlements, is not being a responsible steward of our problem. And that's what we were elected to do, and I hope we can put together a bipartisan coalition working with the President to do it. Thank you, Madam President, and I yield the floor.